Welcome everyone. So this is live stream number 22. I can't believe it. Some exciting news today. I'm now very close to releasing version 1.0, and I'm going to take you through what that involves, what the next steps are, and I'm also going to take you through the changes, well, some of the changes that have been happening since the last stream, which was back in September. And it's mostly been bug fixing, but there are a few new features in there you might want to know about. So I want to welcome all the new subscribers I've had. Really appreciate that. And yeah, it's nice that so many people are now using 10x. Okay. So I'm now at what we used to call ZBR in the games industry. I don't know if that's still used. It basically stands for zero bug rate, which means that you try and get to the end of each day with no bugs. I mean, obviously I've got hundreds of bugs in the database, but I mean bugs that need to be fixed for release. And I'm not there every day, but most days I am, which is really nice. So I was thinking about what does release mean to all of you, and I mean it's very exciting for me because I've been working on this project now for 6 years, as some of you know, and now it's kind of make or break time. Will this work and be a commercially viable product? And yeah, I'm getting ready for a release, and then I'll start hopefully doing some marketing and find more users for it. So for me it's very exciting, but I guess for you probably just want me to keep adding more new features and more bug fixes. But to actually release it, I have to stop that. I have to slow down. I have to only do absolutely critical bugs. Try not to do any big features. Well, no big features at all. The last big one I did was the startup optimization, which I really shouldn't have done because it went against everything, my ZBR policy. But you know me, I just can't stop myself optimizing, so I did it. So yeah, if you haven't seen the last stream, which I did on Wednesday, I think, go back and look at that, because that's quite an interesting one, I think. But anyway, no more big changes like that now, so it's going to be very boring. But boring is good for releasing a product. That's what you want. You don't want any exciting things happening. So whenever you're trying to release a product, you always want to stabilize the build as much as possible, which means, like I said, not doing any big changes, let the code settle, don't break anything, and just let everything stabilize and become more robust. So that's what I'm doing now. So while I haven't got any bugs to do, I'm working on the website, making some changes to that, the payment system, and working out what I'm going to charge, which I haven't worked out yet. I've got a rough idea, but I need to really think about that properly. And also I've been working on the registration system, which I think is done now. So they're all kind of just the boring things you need to do to release a product. And I'm also going to be working on the user guide and website and making some more videos. I'm going to do an introductory video, which will, for people who haven't seen 10x before, get them up and running really quickly. So it'll only be a short few minute video. And then I'll do some user guide videos as well of some of the more sort of hidden features that you might not know about, and obviously doing user guide on the website and things like that. So that should keep me busy for a month or so, and then I'll probably need to start doing some marketing. Now, marketing does not come naturally to me, and I'm going to need to think about it a lot, I think. And maybe even read some books on it. It's not something I like doing, but it's something that has to be done, obviously. If you can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, obviously there's no point. So if you've got any ideas of how I can market it and who I can send emails to, like streamers or whatever, to sort of showcase it, then let me know, because that'd be really, really useful. And yeah, that will hopefully make launch go really well. I'm hoping maybe end of January, perhaps. I'm going to take a little bit of a break over Christmas, and maybe end of January or February time is when I'll release. So that's my plan. I think next I'll go through some of the changes that I've made since the last stream, unless anyone has any questions about that. And where's it gone? In the link below, I put a link to the changes since the last stream. And there have been quite a lot, 28 pages in total. I'm not going to take through each one, obviously, but just a few of them that you might have missed. Most of them are bug fixes. Let's go to the oldest. So there have been lots of preprocessor fixes. Can you see that? Lots of preprocessor fixes and improvements and macro parsing stuff, bitwise thing operators, stuff like that. So it should all just work a lot better now than it was before. And I fixed some quite significant bugs that were causing really long parse times on some files with lots and lots of macros. So you should see some improvements there as well. Yeah, one of the big things I worked on was the window movement. So you can do things like that. You can dock to the top or the sides now, and you can dock here. I'll ignore that. So you can also use it with things like fancy zones for those of you who use it. I've just fixed a bug the other day with that as well. So that all should be working really well now. It took a long time to work out how to deal with the Windows messaging system and handles and things like that. And it was a bit of a pain, but it works very well now. Next. Yeah, some significant speed ups loading Visual Studio workspaces and the parser cache. I can't remember exactly what I did for that actually. It was back in October. Yeah, it should be a lot faster now. Fix large parts of the file randomly coming if def'd out. If you do see any more of those, like if you're editing code and suddenly everything goes grey, that's the parser going wrong and just defining out a whole load of code. I think I fixed them all now, but if you do spot any more, let me know. It's a little bit of a tricky one to sort of track down. Zoom. Oh yeah, just when you're zooming in with the mouse wheel, you can now right click and see the current zoom level and reset it back. It's just one of those little annoying things that often you want to zoom in and just reset it back to 100%. So you can do that. STL, yes, let's talk about STL and hope it works. Because I've showed you in the past it didn't work, but hopefully now it will. So let's open up a folder project. So now if you include STL, I don't think I talked about this last time. If I do go to definition, yes, it works. So now if you're loading up a Visual Studio solution, well, or any workspace, whether it's 10x workspace or a Visual Studio workspace or just a folder, it should now include in the parser all of the Windows, the Visual Studio include files. So that includes all Windows headers and STL. So it's parsing the entirety of STL now. Because previously it wasn't. It was just parsing my headers, my sort of stripped down headers that I made, because I just did not want to even think about attempting parsing all of STL. But then a couple of months back, I realised there was a bug, and it was I was accidentally parsing all of the STL, and it kind of worked. So I thought, okay, I'll do that then, because obviously it's much better if you want to go to definition or something, you want to go to the actual code in STL and you can see what it's doing. So yeah, I had to make a few changes just to make it parse properly, but it seems pretty good. I'm not saying it's going to parse 100% of STL with all the template madness, but it does a good enough job for things like vector and nested stuff and strings. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So that also goes if you're including Windows headers. So if I go to definition on sleep, it'll go to sync API.h, which is where it's defined. So anyway, let me know if that doesn't work. I did have a bug earlier from someone who said it wasn't working for Vulkan, I think. So that I need to look at, but it should work. And if you ever want to add things, you can always add stuff to the additional clues path yourself. So if you wanted to add, say, Vulkan or something in there, you can, and that should parse it. So that should make things a lot easier. Let's see what we got left. Oh yeah, the execute Visual Studio command to the Python API. So you can now send commands. I don't know if I've got any examples. Yeah, here we go. So you can do commands in Visual Studio such as file.new file, which obviously creates a new file, and if you've got, say, 10x open and the 10x solution in Visual Studio open, they will sync to each other, like you can sync breakpoints and stuff. And then if you send that command, that will send it to the linked Visual Studio. So hopefully that will allow you to do some more complex scripting of Visual Studio. I think it's quite a powerful feature. I don't know if anyone's actually used it yet, but I think it's a really powerful feature that we could make a lot of use of. So yeah, if you've got any questions about any of the other changes I've made, do let me know and we'll go through it. Oh yeah, this is an important one. Python now defaults to spaces. So now, because the indent mode for 10x defaults to tabs for everything, but as you probably know, for Python, most people use spaces. And most Python scripts are spaces, and if you start making spaces and tabs in Python, that's really bad, obviously. So it's not good that 10x was defaulting to tabs for Python files. I mean, it's what I prefer personally, but it's going to cause problems for most people, I think. So what I did was I added a separate setting just for Python, which defaults to space. So if you do prefer tabs, obviously you can change that. And obviously you can use whichever you like, but as long as it's consistent within the file. But I also converted all of the 10x scripts over to spaces just to keep everything consistent. So yeah, it's something you need to be aware of, because if you start mixing them, it's going to cause problems. At some point I want to actually make 10x detect if you've accidentally mixed tabs and spaces, because there's no reason you'd ever want to do that. So I started doing documentation, as I said. The first thing I did was just auto-generate. So like the settings files obviously have their own documentation. So what I did was I just auto-generated an HTML from that, which is on the website now. didn't add a settings one. I need to do that. Add settings onto the menu. Anyway, you've got all of the settings, and this is nothing you haven't got in the settings file at the moment, so it's not that interesting because it's all here. But it's useful to have it online so people can search for it. Oh, that's annoying. That should be right justified. I'll get that fixed. And I've also done it for the Python API, which is getting quite big now. And the key bindings. What have I done? That's not good. Looks like I was testing something and then forgot to update it. It looks like site styles file hasn't changed for some reason. Anyway, stuff to do. That's what I'm going to be doing next, assuming there are no bugs. And I'm going to start adding more pages to this as well. So if there's anything you think would be particularly useful to document, then do let me know. The nice thing is these files are updated as part. These files are updated as part of the deploy process. So every time I deploy a build, if I add a new command to the Python API, for example, that will just automatically show up. So less work for me, which I like. So the Visual Studio MVAT setting. It will now default to 2022 by default. It was defaulting to 2017 by mistake. That was a bug. And then I decided to do it 2019 because I couldn't get Unreal to build without it. But now I fixed that bug. So now it's defaulting to 2022. If you want to reset it, just set this back to auto and then restart. And then it will hopefully find the right one. So yeah, if you don't know already, F1 now goes to an internet search. So let's go back to here. Internet search for sleep. Come on, work. That was incredibly slow. Anyway, so that's on F1. Yeah, so I did quite a bit of work on the 10x workspaces for those of you that use them. So drag and drop files now works, and you can reorder stuff with the mouse just by dragging it as well. And I kind of rejigged the file format, the XML, how it's saved out, so it should make a lot more sense now, and just made the UI a bit easier to use and fixed a few things so it's hard to sort of break it, because before it was a bit it was too easy to break it and get into a bad state. And it now auto saves the workspace, which defaults to true. So question, could F1 be smarter? Check what file the symbol is in and include that. So that should be something like Windows H Sleep. Yeah, that's a good idea. I was even thinking of putting like MSDN before it or something, which is what I usually do for my searches. So yeah, rather than just bring up random sleep things on the internet, which it did, which wasn't very useful. I'll add that to the list. So if you do ever have feature requests like that, feel free to just stick a bug on the bug database on GitHub. Just create a new issue. I'm perfectly happy for people to do that. If I don't think it's a good feature, then I'll say, but usually it's fine, and then I'll prioritize it accordingly. Obviously, yeah, like I said, I'm not doing any features now, but as soon as I've done a release, then I can get back to normal development. Getting close to the end. Yeah, now I did a bit of work on Notepad. So now when you create a new file, as you see, it's titled the file by the first line, which I think is quite a nice way of doing it. And by default, when you close Notepad now and reopen, it will show you don't have to save these new unsaved files. It will just automatically save them to your app data directory and then restore them when you open. I can't show you because I haven't got that enabled in my settings at the moment. I prefer not to have it on. But I know a lot of people like using Notepad, just for taking quick notes. So you can just open a file, add a quick note, and then close it, and then restore it, and it's still there. So that's kind of how I imagine Notepad being used, just for small things and just opening files that aren't maybe code files, stuff like that. So as I said, the start optimisations. Now I should start very quickly, but let's see the last stream for that. And that's it. So 3 months work. But yeah, I can't believe I'm coming to the end of it now. Well, not the end, it will never end, hopefully. Carry on developing forever, but I'm coming up to the release. But it's just so hard not to keep adding little features or fixing bugs that people want. It's really hard to say no, and I don't always manage it. Sometimes I just do it anyway. But I've got to start being more strict, and then we'll get there. I think that was everything. So probably the next video I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm going to start doing some user guide videos, do a startup video for new people to 10x, to show them around the features. And yeah, hopefully the next one I do, I will have released it. Fingers crossed. We'll see. I might do another live stream in January just before I release. But yeah. Anyway, if you want to support it, then still please do. It still really helps me. And yeah, so I'll leave it there, I think, and I'll see you again next time.